in the state's Medical Marijuana Patient Protection Act. The House number is H.R. 1983. What federal lawmakers have done with this bill is the federal lawmakers have reintroduced, this isn't the first time this legislation has been introduced, but they've reintroduced legislation to provide for additional and necessary legal protections for those states that have authorized medical marijuana patients or programs. The House Bill 1983 basically ensures that the medical cannabis patients in the states that have approved its use will no longer have to fear arrest or prosecution from the federal government or agencies. It also states that no provision of the Controlled Substance Act shall prohibit or otherwise restrict in a state in which marijuana may be prescribed or recommended by a physician for medical use under applicable state law. The measure also calls for the expedited rescheduling by the federal government to reclassify cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, which is the way it currently is. And also the bill would recognize that the plant's accepted medical use, and hopefully that would streamline the whole process through the AMA and through the regulatory. To date, we have 16 states that have medical marijuana laws on the books. If you don't know what they are, they're Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Delaware, Hawaii, Maine, Michigan, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, Nevada, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington, D.C., District of Columbia. Yep, that's all of them. They all have medical marijuana laws in their states. So, but yet if you are in these states, these providers, they still have fear of federal prosecution, and they really risk federal sanctions, even though they're really lawful in their own state. The recent months, the Department of Justice has issued a couple memos that are back in the news that are kind of counterproductive in what the states would like to see. So that's why it's very important to really support this act, even though we don't have a medical marijuana law here in Wisconsin. What this would do is, if this law passes, it would basically take away the state's excuse of, but the federal government won't let us do it. So that's why it's important. Matter of fact, some people say that if H.R. 1983 does pass, we have a good chance of either amending or doing something with our existing medical marijuana law on the books in Wisconsin. A lot of people don't know that we actually have a law on the books here in Wisconsin. It's called the Therapeutic Cannabis Research Act of 1982, I think it is. The caveat of it is basically you got to get a doctor's prescription, doctor's note, but to get your marijuana, it has to be supplied by the federal government. My understanding in the 80s with the AIDS epidemic, Reagan closed down the compassionate use program that allowed people to receive their marijuana from the federal government, thus making Wisconsin's law essentially inept. You can have a recommendation, but in order to fulfill your recommendation, you have to get it from the government, but the government is not taking new enrollees. So,
well,
yes, sir.
Well, I'm currently in treatment for medical issues, and the one thing that I keep going back to my doctors about is it's the one thing that works. They can throw pills at me all day, and they're not going to work. And this works. And finally, I got my doctor who breaks down and goes, okay, I can't legally tell you it's okay, but he goes, I'm going to stop harping you about it. He goes, you do what you're doing, you stay clean on the books, we won't have a problem. My doctor stands behind me but knows he's fearful of prosecution for saying it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. And that's
he does have a First Amendment right to recommend. He can recommend marijuana. It's his First Amendment right to free speech. That's how doctors get around that. They can't prescribe marijuana, but they can give you they can recommend it.
Well, the thing was I was also on a list to try to get Social Security disability, Social Security income. The minute he put down that recommendation, he would have to put it in as abuse or something of that such, and would automatically disqualify me, which is what had occurred.
Why it's important. That's why this bill right here is important, because that protects patients' rights. So, the one thing that I can just close in saying that is that we've worked a lot with individual patients and their doctors. I'm not saying you're doing anything right or wrong, because we don't really know what you're doing.
Right.
But on the same token, that we know once you become an activist, you work with us a little bit more, you have a few more tools under your belt, and you're able to give a piece of paper to your doctor that explains some of his rights, in which Richard mentioned, and it's a little bit easier to get those doctors to take action. And what we would prefer, I mean, we want them to obviously help you in your own health issue, but what we would prefer is them to take action with their legislator. That you and I calling is great, but a doctor from their community talking to their assembly rep, I mean, that's what they're looking for, you know. My assembly rep, after meeting with her, after turning in countless signatures like this, she basically said, yes, you can go and get signatures from anybody, Jay. You know, okay, you're good at getting signatures, you know. And I lay it down. I'm like, whose signature do you want me to get, you know? She says, can you get me some town doctors, a couple attorneys, maybe a cop or something like that, you know? So it's like, okay, so I went out and I got those signatures for her. But definitely, the reps pay attention to who's calling them, you know? Like I said, I can call her every day. I communicate with my reps every day, you know. I don't think they read my stuff anymore. You know? So I think it's better for me to get one other person to call than for me to call, you know. And if we can convince your doctor to take action, chances are once those professionals actually do, they continue to do so, you know. So, but great, you've taken the first steps here. Just having the conversation with them alone, not being afraid to say, hey, I use marijuana and it works for me, that is definitely good. I mean, doctors want to know these things.
The thing that was shocking to him was that I had discontinued my medication without his advisement,
Yeah.
but I was still having a turnaround.
Yep.
And we started talking, and he goes, that's it?
Yep.
Get rid of everything else, and that's it. Yeah, I can sleep, I don't have problems, I don't have mood swings. He goes, don't do what you're doing. I won't say anything.
If it's working for you, by all means, don't change it. And I mean, we've been to the point of, I have a doctor that works with us in the Berlin area, that he is one of the largest prescribers of Marinol in Wisconsin, that they treat a lot of cancer patients. But what his advice is go get your script filled, don't take a pill, go buy a joint down at the bottom. But the pill is for in case you get tested, you know, that you have a script for marijuana. So yeah, no, definitely. Keep that open, that line of communication open with your doctor. I switched insurances and I just went in for my regular, you know, annual checkup, the whole workup and stuff. And the first, you know, they have to do your questionnaire. You know, what did you come in for today, or what would you like to discuss? They're like annual physical / medical marijuana. You know, that's what I'm here for. You know, so get through the thing. You know, relatively healthy, this and that. She's like, well, I don't think I can really prescribe you marijuana. I see this so and so as your family doctor, you know, or your health professional. Why didn't you ask them? And I was like, no, it's just more of a conversation. And I'm like, well, you would be willing to prescribe it? She's like, yeah, probably. And I'm like, we're in Wisconsin. We don't have the law. And she's like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm from Michigan. I've only been here 30, 60 days, you know. So, I mean, in those states where it's accepted, the mentality is a little bit different. I mean, you're still going to have your old school prohibitionist doctors, don't get me wrong, but you're going to have a doctor who wants to work with you. They have the people, and we've even found, regress a second, we've even found that doctors who work specifically with cannabis patients or in the cannabis industry aren't these rubber stamp doctors that are street and treat type people, get their card and let them go. They're actually people who care. They have wellness clinics and they do things a little bit differently. They want to know about their patient. They want to know their dietary habits. You know, they want to know a few things about them. Not just what disease on this list do you think you have? Check it so we can prescribe something to you.
Oh, I should probably mention my doctor came from Colorado with that mindset, came here with the stringency. He's been the closest family friend we've ever had in the medical field. I mean, I let him give the birth of my children to my general care, to even referring my parents to go and see him in their geriatric care. It's just time.
Yeah, no, that's a great conversation to have. Not everybody likes to have it. If you don't want to have it with your own individual doctor, that's fine. But you know, if you're a cannabis user and your mom and dad are in contact directly with their doctor and their supporters, maybe mention to them, hey, you know, we're trying to get some doctors to call this certain rep. Can you do it? You know, so yeah, no, thank you very much. So
that brings me to a question. How did Michigan? They just recently succeeded in passing their amendment.
Michigan has a ballot initiative state. Basically, their constitution recognized ballot initiatives. So MPP and a couple of organizations went in there county by county, collected enough signatures in order to meet the state constitution requirement in order to have it listed on the ballot. People voted. The public voted yes. The lawmakers had to make the law about it. Wisconsin, unfortunately, does not have ballot initiatives. We do not have that right in our constitution. We can do a ballot initiative, has to be done by municipalities. So within your city, you can be approached on the county level. The real thing about it is it's a non-binding ballot initiative. It's